Rhode Island law enforcement officials have released the person of interest they detained over the weekend in connection to the deadly shooting at Brown University. A gunman killed 2 people and wounded 9 others in a shooting at the university on Saturday. Officials say there's no threat to the community, but they are still looking for the person behind the shooting.
There was some degree of evidence that pointed to this individual, but that evidence needed to be corroborated and confirmed. And over the last 24 hours, leading into just very, very recently, that evidence now points in a different direction.
With them and continue to do the work that we need to do to bring this person who's responsible to justice.
Let's bring in CBS News' Jarred Hill, who's live in Providence, Rhode Island this morning. So, Jarred, help me understand. The police say that there is no threat to the community, and yet the person who committed these horrific acts is still at large.
And in fact, Vlad, actually, they're saying that they don't know if this person is in this neighborhood, in this city, in this state. They said there's no way of knowing right now where whoever committed this heinous act actually is. But again, as you mentioned, they are stressing that they have not gotten any sort of credible threats so far to this community. And so they are trying to sort of manage some of the emotions here. Just yesterday, in fact, the mayor of Providence said that he knows that this announcement that the person of interest has been released is going to cause fresh anxiety for folks who are in this community. When it comes to trying to figure out exactly where whoever this person is, they say that they are continuing to ask for any tips, especially any pictures or video that there might be from around this area that anyone might have had, so that they can try and figure out who this person is and where they might be.
All right, so what are you hearing from members of the community this morning?
So obviously it's quiet here so far. It's a cold, quiet day. School is out now because of this shooting, but there is a feeling of great sadness from what we saw last night. There was a vigil in the area. It was really supposed to be a Christmas tree and Hanukkah lighting that was happening last night, then turned into basically this moment for this community to come together and grieve. Folks are sad here. And there is, again, that concern about what does this mean going forward for this investigation and kind of where does this place everyone after this really horrific shooting.
Yeah. All right. Jarred, thank you very much. All right, I want to bring in Sofia Holman. She's a Brown University student who was studying in the engineering building when she heard the gunshots. Sofia, first of all, thank you for joining us. And before we even start talking about what happened, I want to know how you are doing. How are you holding up this morning?
Yeah, good morning, Vlad. Thank you for checking in. I'm doing all right. I'm currently back in California, so like a lot of people at Brown, I left Rhode Island, and I'm in California now. So
okay, I'm glad you're feeling better. I'm glad your family knows that you're safe and that you're with them. I'm guessing. Your call to 911 was among one of the very first reported. Can you tell us what you saw and what you heard on Saturday?
Yeah, so I was coming from a late lunch with my boyfriend and one of my friends. I walked into the building like I do almost every day to go study. The first thing that I felt when I walked in was actually a sense of disappointment, because I walked in a door that one of my teammates usually studies in, and she wasn't there. And so, you know, I was walking around, I was looking for a classroom. I was opening doors to classrooms, just trying to see if any of them were open. When I first heard the gunshots, I mean, I think like most college students, you know, the first thing that I didn't think of was that they actually were gunshots. The first thing I thought was, oh, you know, this is a physics experiment gone wrong. This is a wood shop. This is anything but this. But after I heard the third shot, you know, I thought it would be better to be safe than sorry. And I remember having a conversation actually with one of my high school teachers when I was in high school about, oh, if there were a shooting at my high school, you know, what would we do? And she said, you should run if you're away from the shooting. And so she was my homeroom teacher, and that stuck with me. And so I ran one block east. I got out of the building. And that same exit that I ran out of was actually the exit that I later found out that the shooter ran out of. And I mean, if I had gone down one other hallway, you know, I could have been the first person that the shooter saw when they walked into the building. Yeah.
Remarkable, and we're so glad that that didn't happen in that way. It's interesting because as somebody who's a lot older and did not deal with the regular instances of gun violence in this country that we see, especially on school campuses, did you not, I know that you said when you first heard the shots, you thought it was an experiment. Did it ever occur to you, just as a young person, just as someone going through the American public education system or even the private school system in this country, that you might someday be the victim of gun violence in this country?
Absolutely. I never thought it was going to happen to me. I think it's something that you see on the news, but I never thought, oh, this is going to happen at my school. And so I'm extremely grateful to the teachers who, you know, made us listen during these drills. Because it could have saved my life today. I mean, on Saturday, it really could have saved my life. Yeah.
And can you describe the moment that your parents must have been frantic when they heard that something was happening at Brown University? They're clearly very, very far away across the country. What was their reaction when you finally got a hold of them to tell them that you were okay?
Yeah. So I think when I first called them, I was in shock. And so, you know, my dad said afterwards, he said I was cool as a cucumber. And so I think they helped get me out of there. Like, they told me what to do, you know, after I had ran out of the building. And they called a friend they had in Rhode Island, and a few friends and I got out of Brown, and we went there. And so my parents were very glad to hear I was okay.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, Sofia, we're glad that you're okay. Thank you for spending some time with us this morning to tell us what happened and what you experienced. And I'm wishing you and your family a wonderful holiday. I'm sure it's going to be one when you realize what some other families will not be able to celebrate this year. Thank you very much for being with us.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Sofia.
And now I want to bring in Refath Bari for more on this. And we know Ref is a student at Brown University. Ref, thank you so much for making time for us on 24/7 today. I want to talk to you about this shooting. We understand you were at the physics and engineering building when this attack started. Can you walk us through what went through your mind when you first heard those shots?
Yeah, so the first thing is those are not shots. That's the first thing that went through my mind. So I'm a physics master's student at Brown, and so I walk out of the physics master's office. I just had a meeting with the T-Rex satellite team, and I'm heading to the diner because I'm hungry. And so I start walking down these steps of stairs that lead to the main commons area of Barris and Hawley. And there's about 100 kids studying in that commons area, but there's no one in the lobby. And so the first thing I hear is this pop, 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 8 or 7 like gunshots behind me. But at first I don't think that they're gunshots because when I glance behind me, there's nothing. The lobby is empty. So I'm not gonna panic in front of 100 people, you know? And then after a brief pause, it starts again, like up, 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 up. And that's when there's no doubt about it. These are gunshots. And then I start running as fast as I can.
Yeah. And we understand at least 2 people helped you after that shooting. I want to talk to you about that. And also, I'm wondering how the university community right now is coming together to help you and others heal from what happened.
Yeah, so I ran as fast as I could out of Barrison Holly. There was like a mass scramble after the second series of gunshots, like
Yeah.
100 kids trying to run through two exits. But once I was out on the street, I yelled active shooter just to make sure folks in the science library also knew. I was just running in the general direction of my apartment, which is up on Thayer Street, but I had no like idea where I was actually going. And I saw someone else also running on the same street. And so I tapped her on the shoulder. Mind you, I didn't know anything about her. I didn't know who she was beforehand. And I said, "Hey, are you running from Barrison Holly?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I said, "Do you know what's happening? And where are you going?" And so she said that she thought that there was a shooting at Barrison Holly and she was running to her apartment. And I asked if I could hide with her. And I don't know how or why. She took an enormous amount of trust at a time when you shouldn't trust anyone.
Yeah.
Her name is Ellie, and you can see both of us hiding in Ellie's bathroom for locked in there for 2 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, so glad she was willing to do that because, as you said, that's a time where everyone's afraid and you don't know who to trust. But she allowed you
Yeah.
to come in, so glad to hear that. I also want to talk about this because, as we mentioned earlier in the show, police have now released the person they were calling a person of interest in this case. So, what is the sense of safety at the university right now? Are you all concerned?
It's an inevitable sense of concern, right? You have an active shooter who entered a classroom. Like the guy was apparently literally feet behind me in room 160, and I've been in that classroom so many times, and to know that, he's still out there is it's obviously anxiety inducing, but also at the same time, Brown has put forth an enormous amount of resources and is doing all that it can to support the student body. So, like, just from my PI, Professor Keith, we received resources from the psychological center, from the counseling center. So, Brown is doing everything it can, and it shows how much love that there is in this, like, really, really bad time.
Yeah. Refath Bari, I am so glad you made it out safely, and thank you so much for joining us. Please stay safe out there.
Thank you.
New video has just been released by authorities of the gunman involved in the mass shooting at Brown University campus. You see the gunman there. These are the newest images taken 2 hours prior to the shooting on Saturday, which occurred. The first reports came in at 4:05 p.m. from the Brown University campus. The FBI is offering $50,000 reward for evidence and information about that suspect that leads to a prosecution and conviction. The governor said there are many threads of this investigation. Other authorities described it as active and complex. There is an imperative, state, local, and federal, for the public, upon viewing this new material, to provide tips to bring them closer to this gunman. Because clearly, if you sift through everything we heard from the authorities, they're not there yet. They are certainly attempting and working on the 49th hour in the chief's terminology, but they're not there in terms of finding someone, arresting someone, charging someone. The Providence mayor, Mayor Brett Smiley, said this has shaken us, meaning the community of Providence, Rhode Island. And with that, I want to bring in Talia Levine, who is a student at Brown University, a senior. Talia, you've been listening to everything that we've all been listening to. You are right there. You were on campus, I believe, across the street from the building in which this shooting occurred Saturday night. Your reaction to what you heard and your overall sense of what is or isn't safe in Providence right now?
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, I'd like to start by saying not only am I a Brown student, but a Providence local. This has been my home for the past 8 years. And I think it is so deeply concerning to feel unsafe here for probably the first time in my life. When the shooting happened, I was one building over on the 11th floor of the Sciences Library with my friends, where we then barricaded ourselves for 2 hours until the SWAT team came and cleared our floor. We then were moved to the basement of the library, where we waited for another 2 hours before we were transported by the police and associated agencies to our athletic facility, in which we waited to be reunified with parents. And I think overall, the sentiment among students has just been deep-rooted distress and fear that this could happen in a place that we consider so safe in our home.
When you heard the mayor refer to more visible police presence, hoping that that would reassure those who work in shops in the business district of Providence or the public at large, those dropping off their children, picking their children up, were you in any way reassured by that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the police response has been obvious and incredibly, it was efficient. We were cleared by a SWAT team within 2 hours in the library I was in, and the presence was, we could see the many cruisers and trucks and everything outside the window as soon as the incident occurred. And that being said, we were in a state where Brown felt incredibly safe, and that bubble of safeness was completely popped when we were violated by a shooter entering our campus. And I think it will take time and effort to be able to rebuild any sense of normalcy among students. I mean, as people were saying earlier, the majority of students have left campus days or even weeks ahead of when they were planning to, because they just do not feel safe here right now.
And clearly there is not a suspect in custody. They were not able to say, the chief, Oscar Perez Jr., whether they know not only whereabouts, but whether or not the suspect is even in the Providence area. But they keep saying and tried to say over and over that the public should not be afraid of any ongoing threat. Is that how you feel?
I mean, I believe the police and associated agencies seem to be doing their best with this investigation, and I can only hope that it'll lead to something fruitful. Obviously, the process of justice is one that takes time, and I hope, for the sake of the victims and everyone that has been affected by this, that they can have the reassurance and the closure that they need once they find out who did this horrific act.
Talia, did you know anyone who was wounded or killed? Or do any of your friends know the victims?
I don't know anyone personally, but as was said by someone in the press conference, we're all 2 degrees of separation here. I know of multiple victims, and it is so deeply saddening to see my small community so shaken by the loss of 2 amazing students.
Talia Levine, thank you very much. And that 2 degrees of separation observation made by Mayor Brett Smiley. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Be safe, be well, and enjoy the holidays as best as possible. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.